This is TWiT.
Let's lead the show with this trifecta of stories about Google's, what would you call it, flailing interest in third-party smart displays, in its assistant devices, in its security devices. What exactly is going on here? And I guess this good starting point is this story that 9 to 5 Google had spotted a Google support article for Duo calls of all things. And in this support article, there was a little note that said, important, Google no longer provides software updates for these third-party smart displays. Lenovo Smart Display 7, 8, and 10-inch, JBL LinkView, LG XBoom AI ThinQ WK9 Smart Display. Google says this could impact the quality of video calls and meetings. So it just kind of throws that out there. Oh, by the way, these third-party smart displays aren't going to work anymore. So it turns out the support, and I mean, these are 5-year-old devices, so it's not like they're brand spanking new, but I think this along with kind of, Google's upcoming announcement that we know we're going to hear about this year about the Pixel tablet, and we know that the Pixel tablet's going to have this kind of crossover thing going with these smart displays in the tablet. Last night on All About Android, Michelle Rahman was kind of talking about how, this might signal Google's new interest in these things, how it's no longer about keeping this open for third parties, how it's really about Google kind of controlling, with their own tablet ecosystem and how that interplays with smart displays. That's my device
right there. That's dead.
Is it? So how do you feel about that, Jeff?
Google kills everything, which doesn't make me happy. And and so we can't trust them. But it's also fascinating me that in the last few weeks we've been talking about how the audio devices have cooties and nobody wants them anymore. Now the video devices have cooties. So this whole, I can't wait to hear Stacey's take here. Yeah. Because this whole, and I know I'm delaying it by talking, but what the hell? It's just like watching Morning Joe where he asks a long question and Mike Barnacle says something stupid. So I'm amazed that whole line that was going to take over our homes, we're all going to have it in every room, we were going to use it. The entire idea seems to be dying before us. Stacey, what do you think?
Thank you.
All right, so we'll wind you up and go.
When you brought up the Pixel tablet, I was like, where are you going with this, man? Google also did a couple other things. And so big picture, my take on this, because I live in this world, is what the heck is Google doing within the smart home? What is Google's smart home strategy? So it's talking about not doing software support for these devices. To be clear, everyone, they still work. I have 2 of the Lenovos. I have the 8-inch and the 10-inch, and both of them are still working. My 8-inch actually just told me about some new features. So I thought it got some sort of update like in the last 2 weeks, but I could be wrong. But also, last week, Google said they were going to stop supporting the drop cam devices that admittedly last sold in like 2014. So they're like, those devices, we're done. They're 10 years old. But they also said they would stop with Nest Secure, which was their smart home. I don't know why I'm drawing a little Nest Secure box here for y'all. But this was their smart home security system with a little keypad that you could punch things in and worked with the cameras and all. That was last sold in 2020, was the last time they sold that. And they're like, that's done too. And so there's a lot of moving parts that Google is kind of investing in and disinvesting in on the smart home side. And I think 3 years ago, Google did a deal with ADT, and they were going to package some of their hardware up with ADT, and ADT would sell professional monitoring plus the professional ADT monitoring plus DIY Google stuff. And ADT people were going to install Google stuff into ADT customers' homes. This was a great deal for Google. It got their more devices in more places. Yay. And they made the investment in ADT without actually having to they would get some upside from the smart home security play without having to build the stuff. So I thought that was pretty smart. And it seems to be going well for them. So deprecating those devices and the Nest Secure system makes a lot of sense. This other display issue is a little bit different. 1, these are old devices. 2, if you've been paying attention to the Sonos Google legal issues, Sonos actually said they weren't putting Google onto the Sonos speakers because Google made it harder for third-party display makers or third-party Google Home devices to work. So it sounds like Google's kind of been getting out of that third-party market for a while, and this might just be the end of that. But again, these devices still work. We do see Google pitching like this Apple kind of esque, like we're going to own the hardware, we're going to own the devices. And sometimes our devices are not as good as Apple's, aka Pixel Buds, but they got better. I'm really interested to see what they do with Fitbit because of this, because they just also today announced that now if you have a Fitbit account, you can also migrate that over to the Google Fit, which I don't know why you would do that yet.
Yeah, why would you do that?
You have to eventually, right?
Eventually, in 2025, I will do that. But by 2025, I will have chosen my new fitness tracker, probably. Because I have very little faith in Google's Wear OS. Good Lord. Anyway, okay, so back to Google and the smart home. The good news, the only piece of good news is with Google Home, which, by the way, software service on your phone, they added new device category, or they added more granular controls for appliances as a device category. So now you can go into your thermostat or your fan, not your thermostat, I'm sorry, your fan or some of your shutters and blinds and garage doors. And you can now, instead of just like state like on, off or open, close, you can now like gradually like slider bar it. So it could be halfway open, halfway closed. Depending on if you're an optimist or a pessimist. So they're still investing on the services side, but I see them getting out of third-party devices. And, you know, that was a lot. That's enough. Y'all can talk.
Lenovo says that Smart Display 10-inch will be available soon. The small one is out of the Smart Display 7 is out of stock. You say they're old, but then again, some people have bought them fairly recently, haven't they? Couldn't they?
I don't think you could buy the Lenovo. I mean, I bought mine in like 2018, but
yeah, going to the Lenovo site for the Lenovo Smart Display 10-inch, it says available soon. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what that actually means, or is that just just the image they put there when they're out of stock, and then some days soon that'll be updated to no longer available or something.
Redefined soon.
Right.
Now, they didn't say what would happen with the clocks. I don't know if anyone has these, but there are a few Lenovo Android clocks, and I don't know what happens there. I am a little sad, though, because I do use the Lenovo 10-inch that's in my kitchen to Duo call my mom. It's how I actually got my mom to download Duo. So the loss of this could be a crushing blow to my family communications.
If they stop working, which like you said, they still work.
Yeah, I haven't tried Duo on that thing. I guess I could try to call my mom, but she would be pretty upset if I did it on the show.
Oh, I'd like that very much.
When's the last time you...
Has she said happy birthday to you yet?
Duo?
Yes, she has. Oh. When was the last time I used Duo? Probably like a month or two ago. We don't talk visually very often. God, getting my mom on the phone visually is just difficult.
Well, that was going to be my point of all of it is, well, first, Google wants all the control. It just makes sense to me that they want everything under their own umbrella and not necessarily have to worry about third parties and so forth. That just makes sense to me. And then secondly, it's I don't know how much longer one could trust them, considering Google's history with killing things off, and then hearing stuff like, I last used Duo a month ago on this Google product. Why?
Well, but I haven't used Google Duo, but I talk to that thing every day. It's acting as a photo frame right now. We look at YouTube on it. I looked up something on YouTube using it just 2 nights ago. So, I mean, I'm not using Duo, but I do use that.
But you do actively use it. Okay. Because I always wondered how many people actively use those devices other than
ridiculous clock.
Other than it just being a clock sitting there. You know,
I feel it's not. I mean, it's not as bad as Google Glass in terms of making me feel like a schmuck. but it's kind of ridiculous.
Google Glass is good at that. Good at doing that part.
I mean, we use it every day. I mean, we even use the display as a mechanism for turning our lights. Like, this is me shading my lights higher or lower.
Yeah.
Like a touch interface for your smart home controls.
Yeah.
Okay, but Stacey,
like a really
queen,
useful thing.
Don't take this the wrong way, but are you
queen
weird?
of IoT though?
Just to ask if I was weird.
Are you weird?
No.
All right. Are you anomalous to the population and that you use this stuff? Does this say anything
Decidedly
about
so.
the market for this stuff, both video and audio?
Well, I'm weird in some ways. I think using the displays as a photo frame is pretty common. I was actually in my in-laws, and they have it set up, partially because we gave it to them to set it up. But I think a lot of people have a Google display and probably use it at some corner of their house. They may not use all the features, but
if anything, it's an ambient device that's just there displaying something. You know, it's like you said, as a digital picture frame. You might not interact with it, but you're looking at it because it's showing you something that you want to look at, and that has some value. I just wonder.
And it shows the weather.
Yeah.
And it shows AIQ. Remember they added air quality index to it last summer?
I forgot about that.
I look.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm looking at it. My air quality, 10.
And see, you wouldn't have known that if you didn't have that sitting right there.
Exactly.
Point. So when I think about this, though, the value for Google, I remember the argument for these devices, Assistant hitting all of these devices was, because at the end of the day, Google just wants more people feeding it data from all of these different directions. Does this reduce that effort? Or I guess, we're also kind of seeing that maybe Assistant isn't as important to Google as it once was. And so maybe this is happening concurrently with that. Maybe that's part of the reason why suddenly they don't care about third-party displays. I would just kind of imagine or assume that, a company like Google that has had over time more of an open ethos on certain aspects of its business than other companies, say Apple, would have potential benefit from allowing third parties to create hardware that uses its software to continue feeding them that valuable data.
I think the value of a third-party created display is probably pretty low for Google, and it's probably pretty low for the third parties creating it. So Google's value, like if you think about, like, was this an awesome seller for Lenovo? Maybe. But probably it's not as high margin as probably a tablet. I don't know. And if I look at Google, like their Nest Hub their Nest Hub second generation, so the tiny Google one, they threw in Thread, they threw in Solely. They may have thrown in other things we don't know about yet. For them, it may be kind of like the Pixel. So like the display is just like this cool way to test out new technologies that, and Solely didn't even really go anywhere. They open sourced that through Ripple, and who knows? So I guess
the smart displays that they did, right? Didn't Solely end up?
Yeah, I have it. It's the one that's sitting. I'm looking at it right now at my desk, and it does things. I can use it to swipe left on stuff, and it tracks my sleep if I slept in this room. But that's about it. I don't know. Maybe there's just no value. Yeah.
There's no way to interact this way. I think that the voice is part of this too. Madame A and all that stuff. I just think that the blushes off that rose. Like so many things, it was a hype cycle. The hype cycle was longer on this than it was on other things, but it was still a hype cycle.
I don't know if there is a legitimate role for voice as an interaction. And I feel like people are confusing a digital assistant with using voice as a means of interacting with something.
True.
And we are seeing this a lot, especially with all the generative AI talk.
But isn't that a weird time then, Stacey, for this to go away just when ChatGPT et al. Would make conversation more feasible? No.
Well, but ChatGPT generates text, which is terrible to read. Well, I guess it would be good for a display, but
You can make it audio easily.
Oh, but it's so awful to hear audio. I mean, have you ever read or go read something generated by ChatGPT aloud? Unless it's like really colloquial, it's horrible. It's
like a bad podcast. Huh?
Some things have been all right?
Okay. I don't know. Anyway, the point here is voice as an interaction is not going away. We're still going to talk to things and have them do things. Thinking that is the platform and that is enough to build some sort of multi-billion-dollar business that's not real. I mean, mice and keyboards are not multi-billion-dollar businesses, right? So we have the interaction and then we have whatever the business is. And I think Google is, if a display is part of that business, they want to control it. And it may be that a display isn't a huge part of that business.
This episode of Tech Break is brought to you by ACI Learning. IT Pro from ACI Learning offers binge-worthy cybersecurity and IT training in everything your team needs to advance your IT learning. Use code TWiT30 at checkout for 30% off a standard or premium IT Pro membership. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit to learn more.